Surprise, everybody! I'm leaving the LEC again, and EMEA VCT and Europe, Berlin in general, and I'm back in America, back in LA. News is coming in just a few days before LEC, but I wanted to let you all know, so there's not any speculation when the talent announcement comes out. But ultimately, I am going to be stepping fully into the Valorant space, and doing Americas again. If you want the real context, you can go back and probably watch the same video from 2021. I think a lot of the same things still apply. But before I get into that, I want to take you back a little bit and talk about me returning to the LEC, because that was a decision I made about 13 months ago. And I'm really glad ultimately that I did it. For context, I was pretty MIA from League of Legends for about a year and a half. I did a few guest appearances on the LEC. I was stuck in the desk doing the call-in in the summer of 2021, which was a lot of fun. But ultimately was getting to go to Worlds in New York and San Francisco last year. That reminded me how much I kind of loved the game, and I needed that distance to regain that and really appreciate it. I always find that when I'm in a studio or in a venue watching League, that's when I appreciate it the most. And that's when conversations started sparking about, hey, do you maybe want to come back and get on that LEC analyst desk? We'd love to have you there. And I was like, oh, well, maybe we'll see. And then I got the privilege to go back to Berlin for Game Changers at the end of 2022. And that's where I fell back in love with Berlin, the city. It was snowing. I was walking everywhere. I don't know. I really enjoyed it. And that's ultimately that, combined with the League and the offer to actually get to do both games full time, that excited me so much. So I made that choice to go back to Berlin. I made it in probably a couple weeks. It took me almost no time at all. I was convinced once I was told that I could do both games, and ultimately fly out there, and got to do basically everything that I wanted. I felt like that year gave me the closure I needed on LEC after dipping out about halfway through. I got to do a full year, really invest the time on the analyst desk, trying to carve out some really unique segments. I tried to push the boundaries of the fun content that we could do live, similar to my LEC update in the past. I did the TED Talk thing about Hansama just banned Draven, which I had never seen the PowerPoint before. I wanted to fully improvise that speech, which was fun. The late night PGL show that I did with Broken Blade as the Top Father, getting to do a monologue, a late night thing, was something I'd always wanted to do. That whole scene at the end with Broken Blade, completely improvised. He had no idea what we were doing. I actually had to explain to him in about 30 seconds before we went live what it is we were doing, which was just crazy that it turned out the way that it did. And on top of it, getting to do Valorant at the same time. I'm really happy that I had the chance to sort of prove to myself that I could cover both games as a full-timer, and not lack in either of them, or so I think. You can tell me otherwise. But it was amazing, and seeing the VCT studio being up above the players was really, really cool. And I don't know, I'm really happy with how the year went all around. I got to do my first studio show or my first venue show in Paris. Not Paris. What am I talking about? In France. I traveled to Paris, but that was completely separate for fun. And that was my first venue since 2019 Athens that I actually got to work in, which was so cool. Anyways, long story short is towards the end of this year, I got wind that Riot isn't really looking to have casters do 2 games full time, with the Valorant schedule expanding and stuff like that. So I was faced with a tough decision. Do I stay in Europe and commit fully into Valorant, or primarily into Valorant, or do I come back to America? And looking at my options in terms of Europe, it felt very limiting. If I couldn't do both games, which kept me so occupied, there didn't seem like a lot of opportunities for me outside of just the main league for Valorant. Whereas in NA, there's a ton to be able to do both in other games or also coaching, which is something that I fell in love with in the last 6-7 months with Teddy Tactics. So being able to be in the same time zone as my players and work with them really full time. We've been grinding for the last 3 weeks. It's been really, really intense, prepping for GC1, which is just around the corner. That's something that I want to pursue while pursuing my analyst desk stuff with Valorant, while pursuing casting, all that. So I'm really going to be doubling down on that while I'm here in Americas and try to carry over as much of that knowledge as I can into my casting. I also am so excited to be able to work with Mimi again. We got to cast together for GC Champs in Sao Paulo. Whether it's analyst desk as a duo or casting, it's always a really, really fun time. And I want to push what we did casting wise, where I feel like we have a very different style to a lot of people. We blur the lines between traditional color caster and play-by-play. We're constantly tossing back and forth. If you remember what I used to do in League of Legends with Quick Shot and Medic, the team fight tandem thing, where we would trade off play-by-playing sometimes during long team fights. Me and Mimi do a very similar thing, and if we were literally timing how long it took us to hand off to each other, and we were down to about a 7 to 10 second average between tosses, where the majority of casters are it'll be like 30 seconds. Play-by-play will do the entire exec, which is like, that's good, that's normal, don't get me wrong, but me and Mimi just wanted to push the envelope and see what we could do. And I think we can do similar things on the analyst desk next year. I was very jealous watching the America's analyst desk this past year and the amount of extra, sidebar content they were able to push out. So I definitely am going to be looking to do that. On top of outside of the Valorant space, just expanding my content that I'm able to do, whether it's YouTube or stuff with other content creators. Definitely stay tuned for some of that. But at the end of the day, I reflect on this last year very positively. I feel like I was able to do both games just like I wanted to. I have never felt healthier. Like I was walking multiple hours every day. I was eating great food at my little cafes, reading a bunch, watching a lot of movies. Playing less games than ever, although I've started ramping up now that I'm back in NA and I've got my 5 stack to queue with. Yeah, I don't know. I think it was a really good year. I'm very glad I got the chance to go back, and I want to thank everyone that watched me either in League or Valorant or both in EMEA. It wasn't an easy decision to go, just like it wasn't an easy decision to return. I think in either place I could have been very, very happy, but I think for the long-term potential, being in LA is just the place to be. So hopefully I can make some visits like I did in the last couple of years and do some work in Europe, whether that's on Valorant or League of Legends or whatnot. Ultimately, that's up for Riot to decide. But until then, I hope you continue to support me. And if you have any questions, I'll probably do a stream one of these days, or you can ask below and I'll answer to the best of my ability. Yeah. See you in America for 2024.